helpful to us. We're so pleased that Terry is with us this evening to let us know a little bit more in depth about historic theaters. I think it's very appropriate talking about theaters because just through those doors, the newest theater in Evansville, the most advanced technologically theater in Evansville, just opened this past Friday, the Cook Immersive Theater. So we invite you to go visit that at some point. It's exciting, it's fun, wonderful things happening in there. We're glad you got to come through our new front doors, through the new iCamp Pavilion this evening, as you threw off the chill into the Evansville Museum. Terry has been a longtime friend and very helpful in many projects over the years. Terry Hughes is a retired educator from the Evansville Vanderbilt School Corporation, taught at Harrison High School for many years, also taught at Signature School. He and John Carl, who is also with us this evening, were the co-creators of the Field of History project at Rice High School. That's a project where students, or that's a class where students go about making historical documentaries, often shown on WNIN Channel 9. Really a great project and a great program that continues here in our city. Terry has had a lifelong interest in motion pictures and has committed his research to now the presentation he's going to share with us this evening, Silver Screens of the Golden Age. And Terry, turn it over to you.
Okay, well thank you. Can you hear me? I'm on wireless mic, so I'm hoping everybody can hear me. Silver Screens of the Golden Age, and that's going to be the bracketing factor of that Golden Age in Hollywood. And that's really the heyday of those motion pictures that are on display downstairs. So I'm going to work through this, and I'm going to skip a few things because I'm afraid I'll go wrong if I'm not careful. That's a silver screen. That is, so John Story's holding that. You can't really see that there. But that's about what it would look like. They were silver. They were reflective in our black and white film on here, just sort of came to life. That was what they were for. They really were silver. That's why they were called silver screens. And I stopped there, I said, that was John Story back. He's not in here tonight, but John Story, Skip Baldwell, Mac McGregor, there are some old buddies may know more about movies than I do. And I thank them for what I've got out of here. Pat Sines at World Library, Jennifer Green at USI, I'm here. Stan Schmidt, who is the county historian. They've all given me a lot of help in all the research that goes here. That's probably downstairs. I'm going to not deal with those things. In the early history of film, it came from Thomas Edison. He had all the early patents, and they sold film. And you bought it, and these were all mostly up and down Main Street. They were converted storefronts for the most part. And they didn't last. And none of them got into the sound age, other than this one. The only one I have a picture of, that's the Riverside Electric. And they say it's on 11 Main Street. It actually survived and got in to become another theater that comes up later. The Golden Age. You're looking at these 5 studios: Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, Paramount, 20th Century Fox, Warner Brothers, and RKO. They're the big 5. They and the little 3 here, Columbia, Universal, United Artists, they controlled films in this Golden Age. Thomas Edison lost a Supreme Court case. He lost his monopoly. It shifted to the West Coast with Hollywood, and these 5, especially these 5, and what separates these 5, these are all, the dream factories, where they had their own stable of stars, taking MGM there, their own stable of stars. That's 1948, more stars than are into the heavens. So, if MGM wanted to pull Clark Gable and June Allison into the movie, they could do it. And they had set designers, costume designers, music people, chorus people. They had a backlot. That's backlot 1. They had 5 of them, and they're fenced in. And inside that set of places at MGM, they could produce a motion picture, a major motion picture a week. Short subjects and other smaller ones also, all self-contained. If they needed New York, they put it back here. If they needed something inside, or create something inside to be in one of those sound stages. Like here, let me see, I'm going to get closer. To a backlot. And then a sound stage. This is Eddie Reynolds and Gene Kelly and Cindy in the Rain and a soundstage performing on soundstage. So that's inside one of those rooms on that back lot. And then if you think of those big five, the thing that separated the big five is they had real estate holdings all across the country. They owned the theaters. So Lowe's owned MGM. MGM created motion pictures for Lowe's theaters. And then among themselves, they cooperated and they locked up the movie business. If you wanted to make a motion picture, you were going to work through the big five. Because they made the movie, they distributed the movie, and then they exhibited the movie. That lasted from, let's say, the time Edison lost it, 1918, 1920, right up through 1948. And they lost the Supreme Court decision. And then they began to disintegrate. So, like we had here then an MGM film and a 20th Century Fox film, because they cooperated. No one of these studios could make enough things. They changed pictures at least twice a week here, sometimes 3 times a week. No one studio could make enough to fill it up. But they had cooperative agreements among each other, exclusive cooperative agreements. That's the Lowe's and not its second or third iteration in Evansville. The Grand wasn't owned by those big ones, but it had cooperative agreements. Hollywood Canteen, 1944, Warner Brothers. Fred and Ginger danced for RKO, and they played at the Grand. King Kong was RKO, which played at the Grand. I skipped through that thing real quickly, but there were some that were independents. Walt Disney was an independent, but see, you couldn't play independently. So he had to release through RKO. And then RKO would be there. Universal. So those would be what would, you know, the Grand had those I guess those contracts, let's call them. Well, what happened to them? When they died, they're gone. You know, they're all gone. The business model changed. They controlled everything. And then in 1948, the Paramount decision, the Supreme Court declared them a vertical trust, and they had to break it up. And when they break it up, it all begins to disintegrate, and something's got to fill the vacuum. And basically, nothing filled the vacuum for a while. It just disintegrated. And on top of that, at the same time that's happening in 1948, technology changed. Silver screens. The screen is a mass market screen. 25% of the population of the country went to a movie every week, because that was the only screen there was. And then about 1948, 50, 51, 52, well, there's a screen. That's a TV screen, right? There's a TV back there. This is a screen. My cell phone's a screen. The definition of screen changed, and they lost their audience. And technology changed on them. Demographics shifted. You're going to see some old pictures of Evansville. You're going to see automobiles in them. But you're not going to see the automobiles like there were after World War II, when they really had their effect on the population of all the country, and Evansville no different than the rest of the country. So let me see if I can get to the right spot. I lost my mouse. There we go. Anybody recognize that picture? Anybody? Main Street. Main Street, Evansville. Main Street, Evansville, in the 1920s. I don't have a specific date, but it is the 1920s. So I said demographics, population shifted. That was Main Street. Looks like Chicago or New York, right? That was Main Street, Evansville. That here is to then, because this is supposed to be golden, silver screens, the golden age, then and now. Then. Yeah. And those two pictures tell you where it happened. They died. They're businesses, and they have to have people come in and pay admissions. And that's 2005. The street's running the wrong way there. Find a person on the street. Yeah, there is no person on that street. Now, to be fair, that was a Sunday, I think. Recognize that one? That one's hard for. You know, this is Main Street, 8th and Main, 1916, because that's the date on the picture, but that's not right. I know that's not right. This is Main Street. Today this is blocked. You can't get through here. And this is 8th Street, and actually in that picture are 2 movie theaters. Criterion, the American, are in that picture. I'm going to come a little closer. And you see the American down here? That became the American in 1918. This went out of business. It's right here. You can see the marquee on it. Went out of business somewhere 1924 or earlier. Don't know for sure on that one. But again, that's gone here today. Right? And this is the old EVSC offices. It now is vacant. There's some plans for it. And this created in the 60s a box canyon out of Main Street. And you can't even tell that there's a river down there. But that was a flourishing little area. I didn't mean to hit that. Let's go here. Okay, so in order to try to have any kind of chance to get done, these films, these up here, I'm going to skip them and come back if somebody has questions or I'll get to them later. They were all before sound, and for one reason or the other, they died before sound. The Orpheum and the Strand burned down, and this one was never really built, and these just sort of faded. They couldn't face the competition from the other places. So I want to go into these down here. These are the major downtown theaters during that golden age. 1920, 1969. 69 is a good cut point because that's the point at which we went from the motion picture production code. The old things where, 1 foot on the floor, all those kind of things about how the films had to have certain censorship, to the code system where we rate them R, X. It's changed several times since then. That happened in 69. Everything had begun to disintegrate, so it had to be, that disintegrated also. So I'm going to start with the Ohio, and I'll go down some of these. Right there. Downtown Theater. The Ohio, originally Marble Hall, somewhere in the 1850s. It might have been one of the oldest buildings in town. It was pre-Civil War. It was the Riverside. I showed you the picture of that first one, the Riverside Electric. It was the Riverside Electric until 1920. It was the last theater to add sound in 1931 to the Big Trail. And it closed, I say about January 23rd. It's probably real close. It couldn't, the flood got it. That one could not recover from the flood. So it's one of the, it had a long history. Here is when it's opening day. It's being reopened as a new theater, doesn't have a name yet. You had a little contest, and they came up with Ohio. When you find the location of this, you can see that Ohio's is really appropriate for this one. So that's the Evansville Press, and Fighting Cressy was there. I haven't looked into that one. That's a close-up of Marble Hall. It was a performance venue. Again, it dates back to before the Civil War. This is what it looked like. Somewhere in that 1920 era, when they started rehabbing something, they rehabbed this thing. I think this is towards the end of its life. This is the museum picture. It lost a story. I don't know what happened to the story, but they rehabbed it to become the Ohio. And it ran for a while, 1933, and it's right there. This is Main Street. If I go back about a block, I'm going to be in the river. So it's a good thing to call the Ohio. And also, the Ohio got it. Program changed daily. It was a poverty roll kind of. I went by that slide real quickly, but there were some smaller ones, Monogram Republic, and they were the poverty roll. They didn't have. They made films like Cowboys and things like that. This was that kind of place. It's sort of interesting to see what these theaters did during the flood. The flood, it wasn't a tsunami. It crept up on them. So they had warning, but there wasn't much they could do here. Most of them took the chairs out of their theaters when they saw the water coming, to some success or not. It's right here. You can see the water's going to get that one. And this is after the flood, and it's right there. Then, and now. Old National Bank has two of these. On the other side over here would be the Orpheum. I skipped it, but the Orpheum burnt down. Is on the other side over there for now. So the Ohio Theater gone by 1937. The American, which was originally named the Novelty in 1912, In February 1914, it got in trouble with Mayor Boston on some morals issues. And so eventually it sold to the Strand organization by named Charles Sweeten, who ran the theaters. If you know Charles Sweeten and the Fine Brothers and the Steelers, you have just about all the motion picture owners in Evansville. I mean, there's exceptions to that, but those were the three over the course of history. The Steelers have them right now, except for the one on the west side. It opened as the American in 1918, seated at 625 on the main floor, 125 on the balcony. It ended its life as the Gay Mart, and it was torn down in 1961. Why? Demographics, downtown, theater system, TV, it just wasn't making money. And the Fine Brothers owned it, and they did not keep them open if they didn't make money. So that morals charge, well, here we go. In 1914, we got it over here, and this is a little bit later. A girl named Mamie Coon didn't come home one night. And her dad was distressed, notified the police, and that got Mayor Bossy involved. And they finally found her, she showed up the next day. And she told the story that she was walking on Main Street and she met a guy with these mesmeric eyes, and they enticed her into the novelty. The American before it became that. And she's not sure what happened there. But when she got out of there, she was uncertain, so she checked into a hotel overnight. Dad's mortified. He talked Mayor Bossy into dropping his case. But then the story shifted a little bit. She went downtown. She was hanging outside the novelty. She may have done this before. And the owner's son, who was the musician, he's a silent era, whenever silent, there was live music. And so, you know, maybe she didn't. The owner's son had told her just to go into the theater, and then after the movie, what Mayor Bossy shocked to find out is there was an apartment behind the stage at the Novelty Theater, and Mamie Coon spent some time in there. There was a bed in there. So he went to the Novelty a few days later, and a workman showed him around. He didn't recognize Mayor Bossy, and Bossy got back to the room behind the stage. It was dark back there, and he asked the workman about that. He said, "Oh, we keep it dark back here. The guy doesn't like it dark." Why? Well, they bring girls back here. How often does that happen? 3 or 4 times a day. Bossy's outraged. These girls are ruined. You know, if they gave up their virginity before marriage, they were ruined. And they weren't all these 7 weren't all at the novelty, but I think 3 of them were. So he was going to pull their license. He was going to pull their license. Now, I'm not sure what the rest of that story ends up being, because it took a while. This is 14. By 18, it's in the hands of the Strand and Charles Sweeten, and it's now the American. I guess they wanted to fight the novelty off of what was going on there. This is a detail from a larger picture, and I'm not sure if it was a church during that time period or if they were using it just to block the marquee for religious reasons. I do have some evidence that the Victory was used as a church sometimes. So notice the marquee on the American up there. Maybe you can see it from the 1918 picture down the street, and that Criterion will be over here someplace. The marquee. This is what that marquee looked like in 1937. It's got a rebuild, looking pretty nice in 37. This is a problem. They generally tried to take the seats out and get them up high. They didn't. I think they had to redo this one completely. They had to redo the Washington completely. The lows came out, but okay. When I get to the other lows, maybe say something about it. So, because hard to find a picture of a theater. Most of the time, photographers didn't go out and take a picture of a theater. They did take pictures of downtown, and you catch them by accident in a downtown. And if you see what's showing, you can see what the date is. Counterfeit 1936 Columbia Pictures, one of the smaller, one of the little 3 little theaters, on the production companies. Not as easy to see it, it's right there. Better here. Got a nice facelift in 1945. And that's probably what we think of these old theaters as looking like. You know, what's really changed is the marquee. Right? And on this one, you go through it. Sometimes you can't tell when you look at the marquee where the theater really is. It's sometimes just the entrance. If you know the victory, the doors are the entrance. You go through the doors and down to another building almost to the auditorium. So this was Republic and Monogram, small ones, the Poverty Row theaters. Then 1961. Fine Brothers very closed it. It became the game mark for a very short amount of time. And if it's not making money, it's a liability, and they're often just eliminated. That's the old Central High School tower. The bell tower right there. And there's the American. Yeah. Well, that's actually 2005 because Main Street's going the other direction and the Ford Center's out here. But there's Signature School. And I'm now down at the other, let me go back and if you got to get hold of that here. Martin Luther King now. And there is no 8th Street anymore, so to speak. It's blocked by the Civic Center. So I go down to the other end of the block. This is 2nd and Main. And Carlton. 1937 to 1959, seating capacity of 850. Big splash on some of these when they got rehabbed and rebuilt. This was built by a man named Arthur Hassensaw up here. And this is one that people tend to remember a lot. This was a striking theater. Seating for 850, 3/4 on the main floor. Vitrolite glass front with polished black surface trimmed in red and gold. Vitrolite is a pigmented glass. So it's shiny, it's lustrous, it's cheaper than marble. And that's what a lot of these did. This is in the period of Art Deco, Art Nouveau, Art Moderne. That's the material they used a lot. This theater looks the other sides of it. It's a striking look of the way that reflects. Fireproof construction, that's important. By 1937, film stock has changed, but earlier than that, it used to be silver nitrate film. Silver nitrate film had a bad, even at room temperature, it deteriorated. It turned gooey, brown, like a rust, and then would spontaneously combust. And that's why, that helped the Strand burn down. It probably helped the Orpheum burn down too, because once they get started. So fireproof construction was important as a selling point, that it wouldn't burn down. Steel and concrete, pilasters along the sidewalls, support a steel roof. It had a balcony, but it didn't have posts. A lot of these old ones had posts. Acoustically treated walls, modern Westinghouse air conditioning. That was always a big selling point. The only place in Evansville you find air conditioning was in these theaters. 6 entry doors in cardinal red and decorated with gold. The foyer leads either to the main auditorium or through a semicircular staircase to the mezzanine. From the mezzanine, a 10-foot stair leads to the balcony. The mezzanine has the ladies' room and the men's room. Dominant color, green, embellished with gold. Silver highlighted green, green border seats, and soft green leather. Black and green intermingled with soft golden brown. So that's the big splash in 1937. It's getting ready to open on Christmas Day. That's a close-up, and that's the film to show. And that's out of the newspaper. A little bit later, 1940, 20th Century Fox film there. This was built 37 by Al Hassensaw, but he sold the Grand about the next year. He owned the Carlton and the Grand. He sold that the next year to the Fine Brothers, Jesse, Oscar, and Isidore, and they held it to its end. They got this and the Grand. So this became a Fine Brothers premier property. Nice looking theater. It's one of those little straights back. This was in both sets of the newspapers. I got a question mark there because I don't know. Hassensaw says he named it the Carlton. And there are other Carlton theaters in the country, so I don't know if I could believe this or not. Because he had, when he was in high school, he had a Latin teacher and he developed an affection for her, Mabel Carlton. And it didn't go anywhere. They kept a correspondence with her for a certain amount of time. She married a professor and then died on the Titanic. That's what he says. I have turned this into a research project for a couple of kids and things like that. They really can't find her. So I don't know. And it would have been nice if we could go to Arthur Hassensall. He'd gone back to Central High School and we could figure this out and find that teacher. But he was from Dayton, Ohio. And his dates are going to be straddling 1890. The 1890 census burned up. So it was a hard record. It worked for what we were doing, looking for historical truth. No answer, sometimes the answer. I don't know if it's named after a girl who died on the Titanic. This is when it's being built. Nice thing about it is it was built after the flood. 1949. You see the Lowe's down the street. That's about the fourth iteration of it. 1940 Christmas parade. Look at the people. Look at the people down there. Again, and this is not the heyday, because once you get into the war years, then it's the heyday. Some of these theaters operated 24/7. As we expanded to our largest population, 150,000, as we brought in workers at the LST and Open Aviation and all those places. Look at that. Here's somebody up in the, because they had the projection booth was back there, and they did have an entry where you could get on the marquee. 56, the crowds went away. 48, see, the Supreme Court decision and all those kind of things are happening. TV's popular at 56. I didn't mean people can't go to the parade. There's just fewer people there for the parade. And then in 1959, it comes down to become a parking lot for People's Bank, which is today gone. Getting ready to go, it's gone. I think it's empty. So then, now, there it is. The Carlton Theater. And all its witchery-like pops. When they got there's a close-up, that would be the Grand back there. And it'd be right here. Go on. Grand. Those little ones that were on that first page didn't last long, and I think what happened to them was the four existing theaters built for live performance converted to film too. And I think they became overwhelming compared to those little bitty places. The Grand Opera House, 1789 until about 1962. It's part of the Schubert vaudeville circuit. It was live performance. And vaudeville was almost like these motion pictures. There were monopolies, and you had to be associated with the circuit. That's a big one. Bought by the Fine Brothers, premiere in 1938. Seating capacity 1,700. And then back up a minute. Orpheum, they talk about 1,600. The Strand, 1,650. Majestic, 1,100. By the time the Victory came in, 2,500. And then 1,700. 7,000 people that could have seen Main Street Avenue. It's a sizable number. It was built to be live performance, way before film. That was probably its first look. The Grand Opera House. Its first marquee. And it's there. This is the one I guess people seem to have the most affection for, and sort of the most, I wish it were still here. Again, business failure. It was built for live performance. In 1894, Grace Gold came here and sang the lead in Conjandrum. Standing room only, 50-cent seats. 1,700 plus people would come to see Grace sing. Grace was the famous Golden family from New Harmony. She was the first person to sing in English at the Metropolitan Opera. So then a reception afterwards at the window, which is right next door. Now in 1914, it's changed It's been rehabbed for photoplays, and the spoiler is showing. And I didn't mention Robert Glasscock. When John Story and I did this in 2005, we had the word out, and Robert Glasscock called me. I did a lot of all the pictures. He had, there's a photographer named Deeds, we see a lot of Deeds photographs. He has the glass plate negatives, 8 by 10. And I'd love to have the 8 by 10 negatives, but he gave me a copy, an 8 by 10 copy of it. So the ones that I have Robert Glasscock's name on, and generally have a real sharp picture of these. And I scanned these at high resolution. You can see the spoilers. These in 1914, and vaudeville and photoplays are going on at the New Grand. This is the Sandburg Fire and Insurance map. They were created across the city for insurance purposes. This will be Sycamore, 3rd, 2nd. Here's the Grand. You came into the Grand from 3rd Street, Sycamore Street, walk through, balcony, and then seating in here, stage up here, alley back here, actually the Carlton back here. It's one of those where you see the marquee, and that's where the theater is. What it looks like inside. I don't have a date on this, and I don't know why those women are there, but that's the inside of the Grand. It had the poles. That's 2 balconies. See, that woman there is not better than to see. It had the poles, the Majestic had the poles, the Orpheum had the poles, the Strand had the poles. Carlton did not have poles, the Vicar did not have poles. I remember going to the Majestic, getting caught behind one of those things. You don't want to arrive late, because that's going to be the scene. That's the stage in 1920, vaudeville actors, performers, people who built the Grand. And this building started, it's not the Grand's over here. And it's doing vaudeville. And again, that corner, and now it's going for a play, 1930. It's right here, going back. Probably in the 1940s, where City Full Veteran used to be. That building's gone now. That's the Vendome, this is the Grand. It's got a second marquee. A little fancier than what it was. This is now Broadway. And this is the marquee that most people were still thinking about theaters associated with the Grand. This is what I like. This one to me says motion picture house. Hollywood Canteen, 1944. Warner Brothers, Fine Brothers own this by now, this theater. Carl K. Connect during World War II. Again, this is probably a theater that ran 24/7 during World War II. Marble floor, marble going up to the second floor. 1949, stage pretty much the same. 62 is close to living its life, advice and consent. And then coming down, and that's its last film. And that's where the ladies were sitting. Now you can see the poles, where the projection booth was in 62. And 1914, then, and now. If I go to the other side, Mercantile Bank, Grand over there. This is from the post office. So there's the Grand over there. So, Bank's got most of the theaters. Bank's the parking lot got the theaters. Majestic, 1909 to 1973, started out as the Wells Bijou. I'm going to go down and get this picture from this. Again, it's 1100. Michael Howard Brothers Warehouse at first, at the Wells Bijou. Evans Hall, 5th Street, Wilka Street. And then it was rebuilt as the new Majestic, 1912, to Robert Glasscock pictures so I get close. This is the Locust, 5th. You came right through the lobby on the Sandburg map. Back in here's the main seating, balcony above, stage here. So that's one of those where you see the marquee, and that is actually the theater. First time I got this picture, I was really confused because I could figure out that's a Beauty and the Banker, and I could not find that movie. It was not a movie. It was a stage play that came in. Traction stations for streetcars, and the entrance for African Americans. They couldn't come in the front office, front lobby. And that was 1912, and that was quite a while. Beauty and the Banker, another stage game. One of the postcard pictures with the color in it. You see the work of it on the marquee there. Don't know what the movie was, but Doris Kenyon was in it. It was doing vaudeville and pictures. The ones that are like this one, the Courier and Press or Journal or one of the others, and they were going to use it for advertising. That's why these are on there. Or I take whatever I can find. 1940, it's got a new look. By 1940, it belongs to the Lowe's Theater chain. And it's their secondary house in Evansville. So, Argentine Knights with the Rich Brothers, Tommy, and Donald Winter played there. It's an MG, it was independently made by David Selznick, released through MGM. It would go to the Lowe's Theater chain, but on these big pictures, Lowe's then often took them to the Majestic. So it could change its pictures every, twice or 3 times a week. Majestic, this could run for a couple of weeks, and that's a long time. At $1.10, 75 cents on matinee. Let's see, Red and Scarlet. And they used it. I saw Ben-Hur there the same way. They used it often for the. Sometimes they wouldn't even open. Then they'd open up for these roadshow things. Still that marquee, 1945, 20th Century Fox. The only pictures I found at the inside of it, Eastern Airlines is doing something, and you can see that it's inside the lobby. Majestic, A Strange Affair of Uncle Harry's, 1945. And then in her diary, 1945 too. 48, that sign comes off, and probably that sign went on. I'm jumping ahead, but the victory became the Lowe's victory. But during this time period, there's been a trivia question that most people could have said that the Lowe's was actually the victory, because that was just the Lowe's. This was the Lowe's Majestic. We always called it the Lowe's Majestic. It's close to the end of its life here. It's past 48. Movie theaters are disintegrating. It's not by one of the major production companies. And this is its last night, October 22nd, 1973. I don't think I've got it. I don't know if I've got it. Or was it now? I know I have now. I didn't know if I was going to go back to the room. So that's parking garage. 5th, Locust, Children's Museum. That dinosaur's over here. Okay. Find the person. Lowe's victory. Originally the victory. June 6, 1921 to 79. It's a long life. Lowe's took possession in 1926. Until then, it was local owners. Kaler and Steeler bought it in 1971. The original capacity was 2,500. When we rehabbed it in 98, that changed the seating to 1,900. Still pretty good size. And Lowe's, I think it's the reason it survived. Of what was down there, it was in the best shape. It had the most to offer. 1924, the Lowe's, Hotel Sondheim, and the American. I'll look a little closer here. Motion pictures involved 21. This is it opened 21 to 24. Under construction. And probably easier to tell here. For the Lowe's, the entrance is here. If you go back, you get into the auditorium. And this is the signature school. Oh, I think we plugged in. Are we plugged in down below, Tom? Oh, I probably hit that, didn't I? Thank you. Wife's to the rescue.
I'm his roadie.
Notice it doesn't have that crosshatch pattern that's on there today. Sandburn map, 62, but it's the same idea. You're going through, it's got a balcony. This is the main auditorium stage there. Here's the entrance. Still pretty much that way now. Under construction. Probably silent era. It's got an orchestra pit down there. Could be a live performance, so I don't know. Colored postcard, but you know, that's it. Seating 2,500. You think about it. 2,500 people. You can have a motion picture house, and you can expect that you can fill it up with 2,500 people, right? While the Grand's down the street doing 1,700, right? And the Majestic might have 1,100, right? That would be good audiences today. It's a nice theater. Now, it belongs to the Lowe's Theater Group at this point. This is that 1924 picture, and just look at how the lobby looks here. Because you can see what they've done today. And this little curvature thing, I sort of like it, sort of neat. I don't know what these girls are doing. Close up on them. The story was, maybe I don't know, they're a school down there, they're too old, too young to be high school kids. Center's down the street a little bit. John Stewart said he always heard the people used to hang outside these theaters and hope for the door to open on a hot day. And the air conditioning. You'd have a primitive kind of air conditioning in it. So maybe they're there for, I think they're waiting for the boss to sell it. And probably was used for a church. I said Day of Faith down there. It might have been a church, it says Blackstone Musician. Right there. Focus on that. The Flying Eagle. And the victory. That must have been impressive. I don't have a picture back that night or lighted. You know, there was a plan to put that in, the rehabbing, and they lost it to funding, I think, and they took it out of there. I'd like to see that back on there. So that's 1924. Then it gets a really facelift for the roads. Change. This changes down here. The curvature is gone. You walk in the lobby, the ticket booth is right in the center of that lobby. Then in 38, it's changed again. The sign appears the same. This has changed. 40. And then it's going to change all across the board by 1949. Samson Delilah was playing this on the date of 1949. And that's what women look like in 1949. Henry Lamar from Samson Delilah. She's Delilah. Inside, not too many pictures inside. They were showing Dorian Gray 45. Very vividly that wallpaper. What the front lobby would look like. Ticket booth would be right out there. So let's see what they're going to have a girl in the ticket booth, and they're going to have a guy here taking the tickets. Over here, eventually, the popcorn stand. At the beginning, popcorn wasn't something the theater sold. They added that later. They make a tremendous profit on that now, but that wasn't what it used to be. Today, you go back to a restaurant over here that wasn't there. Then you're right up here, you're going upstairs, or you're going to go down that lobby and into the main auditorium. Downstairs, Tom has one of the chandeliers that Tim Crowley owns, and it's in the display down there. The chandeliers were on the mezzanine floor, and they lined the mezzanine floor down the length of it. There was a little baby grand piano there, and right above baby grand, and off to this side was the men's room, because it wasn't just a restroom, it was a sitting area, a smoking area, save for the women's room down the way, then the balcony area above there. By this time, 62, the cross-hatching was on there. And I use this one because the 300 Spartans are showing, that gives me the date 62, but it's also Broadway Theater Week. When Broadway touring productions came to Evansville, in this time period, before the Center, they went to the Victory. So they'd run their movies during the day, and then for one night, it became stage production. My Miz would play there. You know, not that guy, that's the wrong name. Mary's going to play there in the Broadway Theater. So it's still being used as a motion picture house and for live performance. It's got dressing rooms, it's got green rooms, it's got lots of dressing rooms. So 62, I like that picture 38. because it reminds you that Main Street didn't used to be a box canyon. It actually ran here, slowed down around, and went to Garden Park. That's what the intent was. That's John Story's picture. I don't know read him, but what it looked like at night. What it looked like when it started falling down. They tried all kinds of things. They tried to split it. The auditorium, the balcony was split into two, and the downstairs was one. They, the teenage nightclub went into it. There was a bookie dungeon downstairs. Again, that's a lot of building. And that part there was the Sante Hotel. That was, you wouldn't want to stay in that hotel. And by 62, I don't even, by 70, I don't even know if there was still anything going on there. It was like a flophouse. It never was a good hotel. And it didn't get better. That's what it looked like before the rehabbing. It has an inclined floor, a rake. So when they used it for the teenage sort of nightclub get-together thing, they had to level out the floor. So they had to get rid of all that. I remember chaperoning after the prom thing. There they used to open that up and they had games and dances and things and this whole thing.
It was a disco.
Huh?
It was a disco.
She did the cover charge.
You did the cover charge. So that's what it was, and I don't have a picture of it right now on inside. That's the downtown theaters, and I'm gone. Okay, a little bit more time. The neighborhoods, I don't know if I want to get through all those because we don't want you out here before you die. I can pick and choose. I know I got John Carl back there, so he would not want me to not do the Franklin.
Yay.
Franklin. Southern Institute Theater, and the first time I did this in 2005, I could only find one picture that had a picture of the Franklin in the distance. It was just, I did not have a picture of the Franklin that it used to look like. I found out more about it now. It's had 3 lights. It's been a theater since 1906. Other than the Grand, the Horse Theater Evansville. And it started out as the West End Electric. It was owned by a family called Cornblum, Harry Cornblum. And they're still alive. They're one's a lawyer, actually. And the Fine brothers' father, Philip Fine, they were co-owners. They rebuilt it in 1912. Didn't have a name for it. It was the West End Electric Palace originally. Didn't have a name for it, no contest. Somebody came up with Franklin, which is sort of logical on theater on Franklin Street. Still working on it, 1912, 450 seats. They later, they out of the balcony to 100 seats. When the Fine brothers bought it, had full total control, they rebuilt it again in 1941, seated 850. So from not having any pictures, now probably had 2 good pictures. 1909, it's right there. This building's gone. This is Smitty's, the restaurant. This is the Girl Scouts. And you start to think about making Evansville's downtown come back. I don't know if I'm going to have a good picture of Franklin, but if you see a good picture of Franklin, 2 lanes, both directions, plus a lane for parking, plus a boulevard. Getting that on Main Street, don't know if you can do it. You can say something, John?
No.
We were having a conversation. I was asking where the nut club office was.
It's down the street, about 2 blocks in that way.
You can see that where the white square stone is, that's the Curry building, and that's where the nut club, no, other side, across the street from that. There's the brick, and then there's like a stone cap or square fitting on top of it. Anyway, go ahead.
You come closer today, and that's where the Western Electric was. Nut club owns this. And the Cornblum family still has this book from the Franklin, from the West End Electric Palace in 1910. And that's what was happening. That's what it made. That's what it cost. And there's this profit, $21.94.
For the
But notice it has a movie, different movie every night, and a vaudeville night. And their costs are for rent and for film rent, that's the highest thing. A piano rent, I don't know why they buy a piano. A singer, $2, a piano player, $3. The projection is $2, tickets are $1, ticket taker is $1.25, and that's a week. $7.81 seems like a lot of money for electricity. So it costs, and so it made $21.84. It's probably good money compared to what that ticket taker got. So back to there it is in National Mile on the color version of that. Now, by 1917, and 1912, it had a facelift, and it is now the Franklin. And I didn't have any pictures at the time, but then that's not the best picture, but you can see that that's a sign that says Franklin, and that's the theater there. John Carl found this at the Gerst House. He never goes there, but he was there one time. It was in their front window. I didn't have any pictures of Franklin, and there it is. They've got it, it's deteriorating in that front window there with all that sunlight hitting it. And they let me borrow it and scan it. And there it is. And that's the second line. And each time they did this, they pretty much tore down, kept the side walls and a little bit of others, and rebuilt again. They just kept bring it down, bring it back up. And then in 1941, one more time, they're ready to bring it up. So, had year-round thermostatic and controlled air conditioning, that was important. A crying room, this is the first one I've seen, there's a crying room. At the back, it had a set of seats set off with glass, and it had a sound system in it, so a woman with a crying baby could go in there and watch the film and not disturb the audience. Two-story high lobby, encircled by a lounging balcony. Restrooms on the mezzanine. Exterior is bright orange and green terracotta and buff-colored bricks in front. Spring cushion seats and a box office to the left. Here, that's Mayor Dress. Ribbon cutting. Probably sold the first ticket because at the Washington he also sold the first ticket. Mayor Dress. What to do on? It's actually December 24th when that happened. And that's what it looked like after 41. This is 1954. This is the one I remember. This is what I looked like when I remember it. Nice enough little neighborhood theater. Well, they didn't get first run, they got second, but it was a good theater. I got ahead of myself there. Let me go back where I was.
Did the Franklin become the X-rated movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a picture.
I was just waiting for someone.
Oh, now I know.
The Fine Brothers had gotten rid of it. I can't remember who the first one was who got it last. This is one where by the time it's gone, it's a mercy killing.
Across the street
Because, that's what I want to remember it as. This is 64 in the rec club. Yeah, that's all gone. Now it's Studio Art. Clever name for a pornographic movie. And John Story had these pictures when it was getting ready to, I guess it was closed by this point. So, but you do get an idea of it. And there it is today. So if you go to Smitty's in the outdoor dining room, you're in the Franklin Theater. And that's good though. I think they made a good use of it. And these people who own these three families, Smitty's and Gerst House and Sports Team, I think they do a good job. Woodlawn, 1915, 1957, seated 500. Became a premier property in 1930. Then it fell on bad times and went into weekends, and then by 63 it's torn down. 57 it's closed. This is probably the family that owned it completely, and real close to the opening. I can't get in all of the details there to find out for sure the dates. 1945, look at the place. Popular movie place for Mac McGregor. We're moving that. Aerial map 47, North Main, and the Woodlawn. Cowboy movies was a big thing. Then here we go. And these all played there at one time or another from Mac McGregor. And then in 63, it's ready to come down. It's interesting to see what Jesse Klein's going to say there. I think Jesse. They still operated the Washington, the Ross, the Columbia, and the Franklin by 63. the Carlton, the Grand, and Alhambra, the American Rosedale are gone. They're out of business, they're not necessarily gone. And what he says, somewhere I think in this article, it's hard to find a new purpose for a theater. One of Tom's themes downstairs is that they're purpose-built buildings. They were built to be a movie theater. They might have had live performances, they could have been for that, but they had a raised floor and balconies, they had all that seating. And when you quit being a movie theater, it's hard to find another use for it. And of the three that are still close to functioning like they should, well, they're all in the hands of nonprofits. And I lost my mouse here. There we go. There it is today. 2012, so I'm going to go back and look at that because they probably did something or whatever there. There used to be a Hardee's
There
restaurant.
was a Hardee's, now there's a gas station there.
There's a gas station.
Right.
So I need to go back and retake that because I was not, that long ago, but that was chance. So there's the wood line, right about there. Parking lot is the #1 use of these old buildings. The Rosedale, 1928 to 1950, in that iteration. Then it's going to come back with 68 Larry Aiken, the Theater A.
Theater A.
Which is sort of too bad that didn't work. 729, one of the first to have sound because he was from 1928, and then Jazz Singer 1927. So, you know, if you're going to go to the theater, then you got to put sound in. It's ready to open, all the plants going to be there. Seating for 729, Pie Garden by East Redmond. Decorations and draperies in soft shades green, pink, and cream, pink, and green. The ventilation changes volume every 5 minutes. It's not air conditioned. Steam heat from oil burning furnace connected to a thermostat. Actually, had a thermostat. 2-story facade, building a brick and steel structure with fireproof concrete floor. I don't know what that semi means. That's what it looked like in 28 when it opened. You got a facelift and the air conditioning and all those kind of things. This was in Article 68. If somebody remembered what it was like to be a child in the audience at the Rosedale. And I used to be a child in the audience, 73 or so, at the Washington, and all the people and all those other things. And I remember that's really how it was. This one, they used to bring their slingshots and shoot at the screen so they put a hole in it. Occasionally fights, and a particular usher who tried to keep order. I used to usher at the Victory. What your job was to keep order. You'd walk down with a little flashlight and somebody's talking, you'd shine the flashlight on them in the face and you tell them to get their feet off the chair. Or, you know, that doesn't happen anymore. I almost wish it would. You did, if you didn't have, you didn't take your girl to the movies. You arranged to meet her there. That way she had to pay her own ticket. and if you kissed her, you can count on that somebody's going to evaluate you. Like an Olympic event. Yeah. I remember my days in the Washington Theater. But that was chaos if you had one of those workers that were trying to, because it was a packed house. The kids didn't care. So Larry Aiken got it and turned it into the Theater A. Completely redid it, 500 seats, new floor carpeting, 36-foot wide screen, new technical equipment, small art gallery, regular commercial movies, and art and foreign films. Continental spacing, seating, color design, blue and green. And, you know, this is, you'd see the foreign film. You'd see the film that never made it to Evansville. You'd see, wow, it was, I like that theater. I really like that theater. It's too bad it had to go. Eventually, well, I think here's, I think he's got it right here.
That's exactly what happened.
He's put too much money into getting Annie in there, and it flopped. And so it became a real bad money loser. And, you know, it's already been split into more than one theater. But, you know, if it just could have lasted, you know, Larry Aiken's dead now. But there are theaters in the country where rather than, you know, the traditional seating, they have like a restaurant seating or lounge seating and chairs and waitresses, and maybe you can order and they deliver things to you. And this one would have been perfect. I mean, that would have been the clientele for this. And it had the pub right next door. So, you know, it didn't last. Too bad, a bad decision. That's what it looks like today, that's what it will be up here. I'm not sure, is the pub still open?
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
on here. Yeah.
I've had a couple of high school reunions in that building.
And then this part's dining,
Yeah.
and then there's a, back behind is the main auditorium, and that's for the special events.
I can tell you it's available.
Somebody can buy it. Yeah,
Bubbles?
because I know
Is he
it's
gone?
not always easy to find it open.
He's wanting to sell it.
The Royal, it's hard to find information about it either. It was in the African-American part of town. And, you know, the people, I really don't remember, but I know the people who lived there at the time said they didn't think they were supposed to go there. They could, but didn't. 1955. Only picture flat out of it. It belonged to the Steeler family at this point in his life. It's hard to locate that one. Canal, coming on down. This is Walnut coming through. There's the vinegar factory. You knew when you were around the vinegar factory, because it smelled like a vinegar factory. It smelled like vinegar. Where?
The Royal.
You know, I don't think so. Right now, I'll get to where it is. You can tell me if that's what you think it was. That building that's there is not anywhere near it. Let's go like, I'm gonna go like I'm right here now, looking this way. So I'm looking down Canal at the vinegar factory. This is Walnut. So now I'm gonna come down to about where that car is. About where that car is. And then I'm gonna look this way. And there is the Royal. Right there. And it's hard to find that today because it's been reconfigured. Here's Canal and this workforce center here blocks it. Here's Walnut, vinegar factory is now Subway. And Canal down here, so now let me come on over. Walnut, Canal, there's the Royal. Now, does that help you? There's the Royal. I don't know, I think that's a Habitat for Humanity house now, and I don't know how long it's been there. I don't know what was there prior.
St. Vincent de Paul is to the left on the screen.
Is that one?
Yeah.
We still have to go back and,
That's a Subway.
so, took a while to track that guy down. The New Alamo, I almost thought skip it, it was one of those that didn't make it into sound. Seating capacity 275, I don't know when it closed, it opened in 1913. John Story found out about this when we were doing it last time. This is when it opened, and it's where Satan was on the west side. Always knew it. Being advertised here, at the time the Princess is still around. And John Story took a picture, I think I called him in 2005 when we were doing this. And this is on Barker, and Broadway's over here. And it actually still has the thing that he could tell there was evidence of a raked floor on it. This is what it looks like today. So that's one of those with the building still.
What is it?
It's a bar, it's
Hobo
Hobo. Hobo. You know it, John?
I mean, I've heard about it. I don't really hang out there too much, kind of rough
You sure you haven't been in
neighborhood.
there, John? The north side probably shouldn't be here either because it closed too quickly. 1913 to 1920 came in. It's right here, last truck picture. You get real close to it. Black Conspirator, 1913. You see where it's back in there, the bank's on the other side. Oh, I hit the wrong thing. I'm going to tell this thing to go back to. We're not moving. So it opened in 1913, it closed in 1920 because the bank, it was making money, the bank bought it. And that's Charles Sweet, and he owned a lot of the early theaters, Strand, Jessica American, Ohio Royal. So 1918, see all the Homer Rubens and the Love Bookers. Back to that original 1913 picture. 1940s picture of the bank is bought it out, level it out, make it toward the bank. Building still stands,
Okay, see, oh,
and
okay.
it's really pretty much intact. It sort of merged these in Photoshop, you can see that it's still very much intact. Yeah, here it is, 2012. This is the North Main, Indiana. That McDonald's is on the other side of that car there. And then the Lloyd, the Lloyd down right over here.
That's one.
So that one's still, the building's still there. It's never going to be a theater. But then it's still alive. Mary Lane, this was sort of an interesting one. 1920s, the pool was remodeled in 37 and in 39. 300 seats. This guy must have been quite the promoter, Arthur Gerber. He sold it to Premier in 42, left town, and too bad. It ended its life in the 1950s, and this is one we had no picture of its existence in its heyday. It was already opened in February of 1937. This is what we're showing. This is one of those things that got from me, Dorothy, from Mary Lane. A few of these heralds. That's what it looked like. That's the first time I found a picture of this. Describe what it looked like on opening day. Because, I'm going to leave it on opening day first. Arthur Gerber was a showman, and so he instituted Saturday morning cartoons for kids, and it was one of the only time he did it very effectively with the Popeye Club and then clowns and things like that. He decorated the theater for the shows like Tarzan Escapes and did a big jungle setting outside there. He bought a 16mm camera and filmed local newsreels. And he ran local newsreels on inside. I would love to find those newsreels. And then he used those newsreels and he got local radio voices to record the sound. And he'd have them on with the newsreels. It looked like he had a news broadcast, in 1939. Pretty clever. He moved, he was going to go to Hollywood and become a photographer. That didn't work out, we lost him. He goes to the Fine Brothers. And it died when the rest of them began dying in the 50s. So that's what it looked like 2005.
What street is that?
This is going to be on Fulton.
That's on Fulton, yeah.
And you'll see there in another picture. 2005. A guy still owned it at that time, and he let us in. He was storing auto parts in there. But that's the screen. It was on the back wall. This you can see where it was. 10 walls and probably ceilings. This is the projection booth, and this is the early days. The film stages. It's like a vault. Oh, I did like it. I'm going to have to figure it out. Well, I was doing, which one was I doing? I was doing here. So that's a projection room, and then again, it's like a vault. If it starts fire, then it's going to be contained inside that room. And through that projection booth, you can see the screen still there. Then, in 2005, it was there. There wasn't much you could do to save that one. 2005, 2012, Florida and Fulton, and last month. Arthur Gerber lived in that house there. So the city has bought this and cleared it out. It's part of the redevelopment area there. I went back in it right about the time before they did this and took all the pictures, but it still hadn't changed. So there you go, Florida and Fulton. Maryland is gone. Columbia, 1910, by Philip Squirrel. Fine Brothers took it in 22. They refurbished it in 39. Seating capacity 650. Closed for movies in 56. 38. And so I just found out from Dorothy, let's see, that you can date these by what's going on there. And that's just around the corner. And that's Shirley Temple. And I understand she just died with it.
Yeah.
This is in sad shape, about 38 here. It's like there's a bunch of doors on the entrance here that sort of look like a lean-to almost. And then it's going to get a big rehab and reopen. Christmas Eve. got a redone, ivy face brick, marquee with mandarin red and chromium bright with multicolored lights, lobby with vitrolite again with glass, ladies room on the balcony level, seating from 525 on one floor, 125 on the other, color lighting, air conditioning. That's what it looked like when they redid it, and it looks nice, and they did a good job on making that one. And that's how I remember the Columbia. How I want to remember the Columbia. That was the movie that showed there. This is 1940. See the white bricks, the look of it. Nice looking theater. I like the marquees on it. This is, I don't know the date on this one. I think it's painted blue, but the Civic Theater took it over. You know, the building needs a little help, but it's still functioning, and it's pretty close to its original purpose, because they did do vaudeville. 2012 view of it needs some tuck pointing. It's got some issues with cracking and such.
At least we saved that.
That one's still there, and it's still functioning. It's a nonprofit, and it's functioning. It's hard to make a profit out of it. It's functioning. I just took that in January because I ordered up. I wish it had been nighttime. The Alhambra closed in '56, started in 1913. At the opening day, Orange Water. You know, this building modeled after the Alhambra in Spain. Seats for 400 with box seats for those who are people who can pass them. Spindly appointed toilet ladies. It isn't anything about men. I don't know what they do. Two-pointed arches on each side of the stage. This is the sample map, 62. I think that's the layout. This will be the two arches. It had a rough time before. You see, it's had a facelift. The Flying Brothers only had a facelift. In '56, that's what it looked like, but it's dead. And if you want to see a movie, go to Washington. Which is not hard. We go up to Spirit Block and go over about eating there. It became a church, or teenage hang out again with bands and things like that. Had a rough time with it. That's 1913. It still had a rough time because, you know, we took hands of that one Rivertown, that one nonprofit. And then rehabbed it. 2005 was what we looked like. It's saying that nonprofit had issues, legal and other issues, and different value up. It's in the hands of a new nonprofit now, which will be president of it. Had another facelift on the outside. Nice looking theater.
Check films on the outside of the wall or something.
Yeah, sometimes they still do it's only do it here on the other side. That side. Yeah. That's what it looked like inside 2006, and I haven't been into it since then. But I don't think they haven't done the inside yet. Nice pictures of what they've done with it. I think they've really look nice outside. Probably better than the first time you rehabbed it. I need to picture this one tonight. Take a booth. Best you can tell what it might look like inside today. I'm hoping there. I mean, you know, and then try to. It's hard to find a way to keep that thing looking right on somebody's TV about money. Lost 49,000 seats. It was 1948. That's almost the end of the golden age. But it's the first one that because that, you know, Ross in 1948, that's on the other side of town. That's on the outskirts. It had a crying room. These are from John's story, and this is at the end of his days. But this theater really wasn't in that battleship. At the end, it changed hands. It became a split theater. It was Rocky Horror Picture for a long time. It was live bands, and you know, a lot of people have memories of it from that time period. The ones that try to be young people hang out, young people don't spend but it was in good shape. But nothing to do with crying room, projection booth, and about some next then. Now, buckled up. And we survived, this is the last one. 1936, 1988, the Washington, CD 743, opened big splash. This is blue. Might be that picture out again. Nice looking. This was my neighborhood theater. First showing of neighborhood offers. Your picture 3 times a week. Mayor dress sold the first ticket. This is about Thanksgiving, 1936. Ready to show the standard map. It's in Washington Avenue. This one we came into the marquee. All line. Upstairs for the bathroom. Popcorn on the screen on the avenue. Right here, and the other ones over here. Didn't buy popcorn in the early days. This was across the street. This is popcorn wars. 1936 and 1937. Hard time for that theater. This would be Kentucky, and this would be Washington. I would feel right in Kentucky. And this one, you know, again, with the tsunami, they tried to save it, and they took the seats up, and they put them on scaffolding, and the water got above the scaffolding. So they had to redo almost all. They had to redo the handle too. So that's an idea what this theater looked like at a long run. I saw lots of double features there on Saturday afternoon. 50 cents. 50 cents I could get in and have popcorn and soft drink. 1939, the room was over. 1938 at night. Ian Berger, right here, it's showing Civic Theater. So they did live performances. 38. It was rehabbed by Ted Brownick, and it was sort of a special roadshow kind of place. I think this is not the original, it's just the rehab. And he made a noble effort on this one. This played for almost a year, right? Special season, Star Wars was there for a year. 1988, down in Louisville. Yeah, I was a man there. I saw some movies. So 1988 it goes. That's where it was. That's where it was. Right here. It's gone. What happened? Remember, business model change, technology change, demographics change. Right. 60s, if you want to see a first-run theater movie, you almost had to go to a drive-in to see it, the Sunset or the Evansville. See it. Then as the movie industry begins to put itself on its feet, then those, they're gone now. This is the...
That was behind Washington Square.
Yeah, Ross Center was the end of the universe once upon a time in 48. Then remember then Shoppers Fair went out to the Diamond Avenue, and then ABC went out to Railroad Road, and things followed. And so these, there was one on Diamond Avenue, and one of them was very worn out now. And the multiplexes became the way to do it. And for me, silver screens, definition screen changed. I've seen Casablanca, I've seen Sevens and Kane, I've seen Adventures of Robin Hood, I've seen all kinds of movies. I've seen very few of them in movie theater. I've seen them when they're on the screen in the house. And right now, that's my movie. That's how I see movies these days. So, that's it.